gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
2019's comic book offerings features plenty of memorable issues so far. Are there any classic books released yet? Only time will tell, but there are many candidates emerging. My top 10 comic issues for 2019 features books from DC, Marvel, and Image Comics. It also includes a who's who of the best writers and artists in the industry today, including Chip Zdarsky, Al Ewing, Kieron Gillen, Robert Kirkman, Robert Venidtti, Greg Capullo, and Ron Garney. It also features a handful of upstarts that proves the industry has a bright future moving forward. Getting down to just 10 comic issues was extremely hard. First, let's cover my 3 honorable mentions. It was very difficult leaving off Spider-Man Life Story number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy number 1, and Doomsday Clock number 10. Chip Zdarsky's Spider-Man Life Story retells Peter Parker's history, but there's a catch. He ages in real time through the decades. It features art by Mark Bagley, and is one of the best books available today. Guardians of the Galaxy number 1 relaunched the franchise in extremely exciting fashion. Thanos placed his conscience into a cosmic hero before dying and threatens to return to the universe. Doomsday Clock number 10 is a game changer for the DC universe. The Watchmen sequel reveals Dr. Manhattan is aware of the DC multiverse and has made changes to it over the years. Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Doomsday Clock is one of the finest comic books available today. Before I get into the top 10, let's go over my dishonorable mentions, the 3 worst major comic book issues released in 2019. Tom Taylor's debut issue of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is the most embarrassing Spidey book released in years. How this ultra-lame take on Spider-Man made it through Marvel editorial is anyone's guess. Tom King is experiencing one of the greatest falls from grace the comic industry has ever witnessed. One need only look at his Batman number 68 and Heroes in Crisis 6 to see how far he's collapsed. Batman 68 features the greatest nightmare Bruce Wayne can imagine, Selina Kyle and Lois Lane having a stag night in the Fortress of Solitude. Heroes in Crisis 6 depicts Narc sitting upon a woolly mammoth spouting poetry. You can also read Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy woo each other by saying, like, oh my god, over and over. Enough of the worst comic issues of 2019. It's time to begin the countdown, starting with the 10th best comic issue of the year so far. Die, Die, Die 8. Robert Kirkman writes and publishes Die, Die, Die through his Skybound imprint at Image Comics. The series is one of the most violent, irreverent comics on the market today. Robert Kirkman is probably the biggest writer in the industry outside the big two, and in my opinion, Die, Die, Die is his best series. The art from Chris Burnham is pretty good, but the star of the book is the hilarious writing and array of characters. Issue 8 features one of the funniest satires of the current American political climate I've personally read. Former President Obama is depressed at the election results and becomes a fascist dictator, appointing himself to a 3rd term. He rides a tank down the street and flips the cameras off for his press release. The rest of the issue is top-notch as well and completes the first story arc in the series. Unfortunately, Die, Die, Die is currently on hiatus, and I, for one, can't wait for it to return with more blood, guts, and mocking for everyone. The number 9 comic issue of 2019 is from a creative duo that have been at the forefront of crime noir for over a decade now. Criminal number 5. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips have been telling stories of the Lawless family in the pages of Criminal since 2006. Easily the best crime noir series on the market. Brubaker has a great feel for the seedy underbellies of society. The art from Sean Phillips is incredibly powerful and creates the tone of the setting perfectly. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are one of the most consistently great creative teams in the industry today. Every issue of the series is must-read, but the team take it to another level in issue 5. It's the beginning of a new story arc and features one of the best character introductions I've ever read. Private investigator Dan Farraday is tracking down Jane, the former mistress of his wealthy employer. Farraday is an ex-cop who was on the take and not cut out for life on the beat. But he has a knack for finding people. This issue fleshes out the Vietnam War veteran fully and leaves readers wanting more. By the end, Dan Farraday has an unfortunate run-in with lifelong criminal Teeg Lawless and is left in pretty rough shape. Criminal number 5 is an expertly crafted, character-driven story. The number 8 comic book on my list is the best issue release from DC Black Label thus far, Batman Last Night on Earth, Book 1. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo wrote the last great run on Batman. Together, they introduced the Court of Owls to the streets of Gotham. They were the creative force behind the mega hit event Dark Knight's Metal. Needless to say, their Bat credentials are top-notch. Last Night on Earth delivers the goods and then some. Snyder's story is very heartfelt and keeps readers a bit off kilter. The art by Greg Capullo is fantastic as always, featuring his trademark visual stylings. Together, they haven't missed a beat, leaving readers longing for better days in the pages of DC's flagship character. Batman Last Night on Earth, Book 1, starts with a very youthful Bruce Wayne waking in Arkham Asylum. The famed mental institution is filled with workers who look very similar to Batman's classic rogues gallery. Alfred tries to convince Bruce Batman isn't real and it's all in his head. He sees through it all and puts the cowl on once again. Bruce discovers himself in a wasteland with Joker's head in a future gone completely mad. The story features a few classic characters and roles readers won't expect. Snyder and Capullo set the bar for future DC Black Label books through the roof with their excellent Batman Last Night on Earth Book 1. Next is a prequel to one of the most successful films in the world in 2018. Coming in at number 7 is Killmonger number 5. Bryan Hill is one of the best new talents in the industry. He's got a great feel for multiple genres, but is at the top of his game with street-level characters. It's no surprise he aces the origin story of one of the best MCU villains in years. Artist Juan Ferreira is equally brilliant on the series. If you want to see two creators in perfect unison, go back to the amazing hit scene by Killmonger and his crew in Killmonger number 2. It's very reminiscent of the bank robbery in the film Heat, which Hill has cited many times as a personal inspiration. Killmonger number 5 is a fitting end to one of the best miniseries at Marvel Comics the past few years. Eric Killmonger has been betrayed by the woman he wanted to be his queen. His mentor and his mentor's wife and child are murdered in front of him. Killmonger is out for revenge and exacts it in terrific fashion, finishing his transformation from brilliant college student with a chip on his shoulder to full-fledged supervillain. Almost everything Bryan Hill writes is quality, but Killmonger is his best work to date. The next issue comes from the pages of the best indie comic on the market today, Kieron Gillen and Stephanie Hahn's spectacular Die number 3. Die is also the best fantasy comic in the industry. Kieron Gillen is a terrific writer, but in my mind, Die is the best series of his career. A group of friends return to the realm of Die, a world inspired by Tolkien's Middle-earth and Dungeons and Dragons. This is the first ongoing series for artist Stephanie Hans. As good as Gillen is on the series, she steals the show with her bold visual stylings. She has a gift for creating magnificent creatures and makes Die a visual masterpiece. Every issue thus far has been excellent, but issue 3 is the best. It's an incredibly sad story that evokes feelings of World War I trench warfare. After a dragon attacks a band of friends, main character Ash takes refuge in a bunker. Meeting several characters from their RPG, it turns out while the group have been away from the world of Die for 20 years, the game characters have been dying on the front lines the entire time. The NPCs have memories of families back home and long to return to them. It's an incredibly well-told story featuring the best visuals in the industry. Die number 3 is a tremendous achievement from creative team Kieron Gillen and Stephanie Hans. Before I name the top 5 comic issues of 2019, let's do a quick recap of issues 10 through 6. Coming in at number 10 is Robert Kirkman's hilarious spy satire, Die, 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 number 8. At number 9 is Ed Brubaker's brilliant crime noir book, Criminal number 5. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo reunite for Batman Last Night on Earth, Book 1, my number 8 issue. Bryan Hill's excellent Eric Killmonger origin story, Finale, is number 7 with Killmonger number 5. The number 6 comic issue of 2019 is sublime but sad fantasy book Die number 3. The bar has been set exceptionally high, but my top 5 comic issues of 2019 are truly the cream of the crop. Coming in at number 5 is a comic featuring a classic character who just returned to Marvel Comics. Savage Sword of Conan #1. Conan has been severely overexposed at Marvel since returning to the publisher in 2019. 3 series contain the famous character's name in the title, and Conan has been featured in the Avengers and Savage Avengers as well. The 5-issue Savage Sword of Conan run from Gerry Duggan and Ron Garney is easily the best Conan story so far. Duggan gets the character and settings very well. Ron Garney's gritty art style is the star of the series. He uses heavy shadowing and sharp angles to create a great aesthetic for Robert E. Howard's Hyborian Age setting. Issue 1 was the perfect reintroduction to Conan. It depicts the future king surviving on raw shark meat before being taken by a slaver ship. He's nursed back to health by fellow captive Sudi, who's hoping to be set free to join the ship's crew. Unfortunately for the ship's captain, he's in possession of a very valuable artifact, and the famous thief isn't long for captivity. Duggan's limited yet effective dialogue and Garney's splendid art capture the feel of the defiant barbarian impeccably. Savage Sword of Conan #1 is the perfect start of a new high-stakes adventure for the timeless character. My #4 comic issue comes from the pages of not only the best horror comic in the industry, but the best comic series period, Immortal Hulk #18. Immortal Hulk is the hottest series in comic books today. Sales have doubled since January, and it's currently the second best-selling ongoing series on the market, trailing only Amazing Spider-Man. Al Ewing and artist Joe Bennett revitalized the long-suffering character with a return to its horror roots. Ewing is weaving classic Hulk lore into an exciting new take on the character. The artwork from Bennett is simply stunning. The veteran horror comic artist creates brilliant visual stories filled with tensions every single issue. In issue 18, Joe Fixit has returned using Bruce Banner's body to re-establish his Reno roots. Meanwhile, reporter Jackie McGee investigates Hulk and Betty Ross's disappearance, discovering a new red version of the Harpy. The U.S. military has set a new abomination loose to track down Banner. The issue crescendos to the first confrontation between Hulk and Abomination in the pages of Immortal Hulk. Issue 18 is a culmination of 12 months of intense storytelling from Al Ewing and Joe Bennett. Robert Venidtti is my personal favorite writer in the entire comic industry. He crafts the third best comic issue of 2019, Hawkman #12. Venidtti and artist Brian Hitch have been one of the greatest creative duos in comics the past year. They took Hawkman, a character with a somewhat convoluted history, and took him to heights never before seen. Robert Venidtti masterfully ties the character's history together in an extremely satisfying story spanning the first 12 issues of Hawkman. Brian Hitch makes the character soar with his dynamic aerial illustrations. By the end, Carter Hall is a hero who reincarnates across space and time in search of redemption for the sins of his past. This all culminates in Hawkman #12, Hitch's finale on the series. The Deathbringer army Carter Hall once commanded in a past life arrives at Earth. He calls upon a legion of past Hawkman incarnations who battle for the fate of humankind over London. It's an extremely thrilling, emotional issue that completes one of the finest story arcs in recent comic history. Hawkman features many great moments during the first 12 issues. Hawkman #12 is the perfect ending to a nearly flawless reimagining of Carter Hall while staying true to the character and his 80-year history. The second best comic issue of 2019 is penned by the hottest writer in comics today. Chip Zdarsky provides the climax to a very emotional story in Daredevil #5. When Marvel announced Chip Zdarsky and Marco Checchetto were joining forces on the next Daredevil series, readers were very excited. The results have been better than anyone could expect. Matt Murdock is recovering from a near-death experience. Zdarsky has broken the character down to his core in order to build him back up again. This includes an incident where Matt may have accidentally killed a local thug he caught stealing. Checchetto's art is extremely emotional and includes great symbolism throughout. He's updated Daredevil's look to include MMA-style hand wraps that make the character feel even more street level. Issue 5 is a conclusion of their first story arc on the series. Daredevil is suffering a tremendous amount of discomfort and patrolling the streets on painkillers. He's haunted by the death of the criminal that's looking more and more like his doing. The defenders provide backup aid and take him back to his apartment to recuperate. The highlight of the issue is Spider-Man arriving for a heart-to-heart between the New York-based superheroes. Zdarsky and Checchetto had an amazing start to their new Daredevil series, but no issue was better or more powerful than Daredevil number 5. The competition for Best Comic Issue of 2019 was very fierce. My choice for number 1 was written and illustrated in the mid-2000s, but wasn't released until 2019. Man and Superman number 1. Marv Wolfman started writing this story, originally intended for publication in Superman Confidential in 2006. The series was canceled before the 4-issue arc was printed. It sat fully completed for a decade. Wolfman crafts a wonderful origin story for Clark and his introduction to Metropolis, the Daily Planet, and many classic characters and villains. Clark is presented as very vulnerable. It adds to the charm of the character and story. The art by Claudio Castellini has a terrific vintage look without feeling dated. It harkens back to better days for Clark Kent and his Superman persona. The story is heavily character-driven and features Clark Kent before becoming the world's greatest superhero. He arrives in Metropolis ready to start his new life in the news business. His powers make him highly capable, but he's not a competent hero or writer yet. Clark makes many mistakes along the way and feels ashamed to tell his parents about his current struggles. It's a wonderful story of self-discovery and perseverance. All-Star Superman, Superman Birthright, and Superman the Movie all provide terrific origin stories for DC's most iconic character. Man and Superman number 1 deserves a place in the discussion as the best origin story ever for Clark Kent and Superman. It's the best comic issue of 2019 so far. There you have it, folks. The 5 best comic issues of 2019. Savage Sword of Conan number 1 from Jerry Duggan and Ron Garney is a fantastic start to the character's return to Marvel Comics. Al Ewing and Joe Bennett's Immortal Hulk number 18 returns 2 classic characters to the world of Bruce Banner. Hawkman number 12 is the culmination of Robert Venidtti and Brian Hitch's perfect reimagining of Carter Hall. Chip Zdarsky and Marco Checchetto's Daredevil number 5 is a powerful finish to their amazing first story arc with the character. Man and Superman number 1 went unpublished for a decade. Thankfully, DC Comics finally released Marv Wolfman and Claudio Castellini's masterful Superman origin story for everyone to enjoy. Thank you very much for viewing my countdown of the best comic issues of 2019 so far. I hope you join me for my next comic book countdown. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.